Hi, Church. Pastor Jeff here with another Trinity Check In. In a moment, I want to give you a sneak peek of tonight's vote coming from our building committee and our project. First, though, a tool to go along with our Doubt series. If you haven't heard, we're doing a series right now. We started it last Sunday on doubt and the importance of doubt in faith. You know, sometimes doubt leads us to feel shame or guilt or something like that, but it shouldn't. Because the truth is, healthy doubt anyway, is something that doesn't paralyze us, but that leads us to a better, deeper, richer, and more personal faith. And if you haven't heard last week's sermon, please go and listen. It will be worth your time. You can find it on our podcast feed, on our YouTube page, on our webpage, trinitylincoln.org. However, I'm going to use these Wednesday videos each week to add something. And today, I want to give you a tool that's going to help through this whole series. Maybe you've heard it before, even if you have, maybe it's the right time for a reminder, but it's something that's at the center of what it means to be United Methodist. Now, I don't like the name that the scholar who came up with it gave it. I'll tell you anyway, because it's out there in the world and on the internet. It's the Wesleyan Quadrilateral. That's right, Wesleyan Quadrilateral. John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, and his brother Charles. The quadrilateral refers to a four-sided shape, right? And the scholar, Albert Outler was his name, called it the Wesleyan Quadrilateral because in studying all of John Wesley's sermons and hymns and letters and all of that, journals, he realized that whenever Wesley faced a significant question of faith, he always approached it with four sides. Thus the quadrilateral, right? It turns out it's a great tool for us to use when thinking about hard questions today, and it's one of those gifts of Methodism to the world, I think. Now, here's what the four sides are. The first one is Scripture. Now, Scripture is always the foundation. It's difficult to say any of the four sides are bigger than any others, but let's be honest. The Scripture one is the foundation because that's the rock. That's the foundation. That's what everything else is built on. And to be honest, whenever we go off on some strange, wild idea, which I know I do often, Scripture is what keeps us rooted and grounded. And so we always begin when we have a difficult question to look and see what Scripture says about it. And you'll see again and again throughout this sermon series, I'm constantly going back to Scripture for it. So there's the first side. The second one then is tradition. Now, this word needs a little definition because by tradition we don't mean, well, we've always done it that way. If you've ever been in a church that tried to move the coffee pot to the other side of the kitchen, you know what I mean. That's not what this means. This use of the word tradition means that you may be smart, but you're not the first smart person that ever lived. There are lots of other people who've also asked this difficult question. And if you don't know where it is, somewhere in Christian history, there's somebody else who's wrestled with this. You know, maybe it's the early church fathers, maybe it's great theologians, maybe it's other pastors, lay people, I don't know. But the point is, what does your tradition say about it? And even if they don't answer the question exactly or satisfactorily, maybe there's another tool from your tradition that can help you explore it. This, for instance, this Wesleyan Quadrilateral is one of the tools from our tradition, United Methodism. So, okay, so Scripture, what does tradition say? And then experience. So what have we experienced of God? This was John Wesley's addition to this way of thinking, by the way. So if you watched last week's sermon, you know that I told the story of several experiences that I have had with God that I simply can't deny. I tend to have kind of a mystical bent, you might say, and I can't deny those experiences. So if a theological question ever came up that seemed to stand against one of those experiences that I've had, well, that comes into it. And for me, I know my own growth into inclusivity on LGBTQ issues happened through experience. Me not being a member of that community myself, it was the experience of having friends and of knowing others that helped me to understand it more deeply. That then goes along with Scripture and tradition and the other aspects as part of how I understand anything, any LGBTQ issue. All right, so Scripture, tradition, experience, and then lastly, reason. And the best I've ever heard this one said is like this: God gave you a brain. Why do you think God gave it to you? I'll tell you, not to check it at the door when you come to church. That is not the right way. No, God gave you a brain for a reason, so use it. Your reason, your smarts, your intelligence is what ties these other three sides together, what keeps the sides of this quadrilateral from falling apart. Our reason is what helps us make sense of things. You know, if you find something that is a contradiction in the Bible, or even that just looks like a contradiction in the Bible, what do? Well, use your brain. There may be a very good answer for it if you dig into it a little bit. Now, this is such a good tool because whenever these difficult questions come along, we can put all of these together. For instance, if you come across a story in the Bible that is especially violent, because there are a few, well, experience tells you that that's not God's heart. That's not how I've experienced God. That combines with tradition, with other people that have written about it, with other scriptures such as Jesus saying, "Love your neighbor as yourself." All of these come together, tied together by our brains, and help us to arrive at a deeper understanding of, say, one of the violent scriptures that's in the Bible. And that's actually a pretty good place to leave this, because this Sunday's sermon, the second sermon in the series, is going to be about those difficult passages of the Bible. The question we're asking this Sunday is the Bible true? Now, that question is just dripping with all sorts of other questions that need to be asked around it, and we're going to go there. We're going to talk about Scripture. We're going to talk about how we can believe Scripture, why I believe Scripture, and I'm going to provide you with some other tools like this, and of course, I'll be back next Wednesday to do more of the same here in this spot. Now, as promised, at this particular moment in the life of Trinity United Methodist, today is kind of an exciting day. You know, for the past year, we have had a study committee that started with the question of, with Trinity, when Trinity moved to Village Gardens, the original intent was to build a sanctuary to go along with what we have now, which is also a very nice space. So they started with the question, do we still need to do that? Do we still want to do that? They've put together a report. Here's a nice part of coming to you from my desk. Here it is. We're going to have this at the meeting tonight. It's a one-page front and back. And we're going to have it at the meeting tonight, but if any of you would like to read it separately, I am most happy to send it to you. It's the result of interviews that our building committee has done and conversations that they've had. And the recommendation that they're bringing to the church is that, we need to, at the very least, look into this more deeply. And so tonight's vote falls along a timeline. I'll show you what I'm going to hand out tonight and how I'm going to talk about it. You never done one of those things where you have this big messy process and you boil it down into something simple to make it understandable? This is what we have here. So we've had this study committee that's been going on for the last year. Then we have a vote called a charge conference vote. That's what's happening tonight. And it's basically a vote to begin. Now, I know that sounds funny because we've kind of already begun, right? But this is beginning more in earnest. After tonight's vote, assuming that the answer is yes, then we'll proceed on and talk to an architect and draw up basic plans, and also a fundraising consultant to see how much we're capable of as a church. Once basic plans are in place, we'll come back to the full church for a vote. That'll be asking, are we on the right track? Do you all like what we've come up with? Is this right? What other ideas or wisdom do you have? It's not too late to make even major changes to it. Then we'll go to develop full plans, and at the end of that, have another vote, and if all is good, then that's when we actually start. Kind of exciting to see it laid out, isn't it? And tonight is, it's not a huge vote, I suppose, but it is momentous because it's one of the major steps on that journey towards expanding our facility, which our building committee showed us we have clearly outgrown and are in need of more space. So the time is a bit of an odd one. It's at 6 o'clock tonight. We're going to do it in the youth room downstairs because of the extra space that we have compared to our other meeting rooms. If you'd like to come, you're most welcome to come at 6 o'clock tonight. Otherwise, you're welcome to catch up on it later, and if you want to see a copy of the report, I'm most happy to send that to you too. Just email me at jeff@trinitylincoln.org, and I will send it your way. In the meantime, whatever hard questions come your way, I hope you be a little more equipped to think about them. Remember the Wesleyan quadrilateral and think about whenever you have a hard question, ask yourself, how does Scripture form a foundation for it? What does my tradition say? How have I experienced God in relation to this? And then use the powers of your brain, your reason, to hold it all together. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying a 20-degree day that feels hot out, strangely, and I look forward to seeing you this Sunday.